What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content here on my channel, then make sure you hit the like button and make sure you hit subscribe so you can help decide what direction the content on my channel goes in the foreseeable future. Okay, so with the trailer for Thor Ragnarok, I guess the second trailer for Thor Ragnarok having dropped, at the tail end, we got our first view of Surtur. And I gotta be honest, I didn't think we would see him. Like, I honestly did not believe we would see Surtur in Thor Ragnarok. He looks amazing, but I didn't think we would see him. For those of you guys who are new to Marvel Comics, Surtur is basically the king of the fire demons, and he is the arch nemesis. He's like the main enemy of Odin, but he's also an enemy of Thor. He's really more of like an arch enemy of Odin, more so than Thor. Thor's main enemy is, of course, Loki, but Surtur's more powerful than both of them. And it's really kind of funny because when it comes to the Asgardian gods, there is a hierarchy from the oldest being the most powerful to the newest being the least powerful. Because remember, Odin is not the first king of Asgard. He's something like the third or fourth king of Asgard. It's a family lineage and it goes all the way back to Buri, I think it was. And then Buri had Bor, and then Bor had Kol and Odin and Vili and V. And then like Odin ended up having Thor. It was something along those lines, but there's like different, hierarchies to it. But the fact remains, the older a ruler is, the more powerful they were, just because of the fact that they were dealing with, far stronger enemies back then. It's really just a way for Marvel to kind of tone down how powerful people will become over the years. For example, when Thor has his own offspring, they'll be weaker than Thor is. It's just one of those ways that Marvel kind of deals with those interesting scenarios. But as far as Surtur himself, his origin is intertwined into the origin of Asgard, and that's kind of a benefit, but it's also a downside. With regards to the formation of Asgard, again, all we're really told is that it was just there one day. Like, there were just realms that were there were basically land masses. They kind of coalesced, converged, and eventually gave birth to Asgard. And then even then, among the various gods that emerged, there's kind of like origin stories on them. Again, that's all covered as part of Tales of Asgard, and for the most part we might actually go through and start talking about those because there's some pretty cool information in those particular stories. But as far as Surtur goes, there's really not an explanation in terms of like when he was born or anything along those lines, because there doesn't need to be. Marvel never really gave us any of that stuff when it came to those characters. Instead, what they did is they provided this kind of equal footing among all these different beings. And so Surtur is to the fire demons what Laufey is to the frost giants. If you saw the first Thor movie, and it dealt with the idea of the frost giants when Thor kind of went off on his own alongside Loki, and then Odin had to basically show up and bail him out and then banned him from Asgard. Laufey was essentially the king of the frost giants. He was the most powerful of the frost giants. In the realm of Marvel Comics, Surtur is the most powerful of all the fire demons. And so again, it's just these different realms where different beings exist. Now, the reason why it is that Surtur is so prominent in Marvel Comics, and the reason why he's so significant, really more so than like, Laufey of the Frost Giants or anything, actually came in Journey into Mystery issue number 99, again, during the Tales of Asgard backup feature for this story. And what it did is it basically gave us a set of events whereby Odin ended up traveling to face off against the trolls on his way to face off against the fire demon Surtur. Now, the reason why this was so significant is because Odin himself has what's called the Odin Force. And the Odin Force, truth be told, is really just Marvel giving Odin a power that lets him do pretty much whatever he needs to do at any particular point in time. It's a plot device. And the reason why we know that is because Marvel never specifies, here's what the Odin Force can do, and here's what the Odin Force cannot do. It's not like the Odin Force gives Odin super strength and speed and durability and like a healing factor, and that's it. It's allowed him to do any number of things. He's been able to face off against Celestials. He's been able to go toe-to-toe against Galactus. He's been able to do all different kinds of things. It's just a power Marvel gives him to inject him into a story to make him important. Now, the caveat to this is that it's like a battery. If Odin uses 50% of the Odin Force, then he has to sleep however long he needs to in order to recharge that 50%. The more of the Odin Force he uses, the longer he sleeps. It's called the Odin sleep. That's why he ends up, more or less crashing out. It's like coming down off a carb load or something like that. But the fact remains here that the Odin Force is basically a power that's given to Odin that is effectively the life essence of his two brothers, Vili and V. And so the reason why this ended up happening is because of the fact that in the early days when they were younger, Odin, Vili, and V went to go fight Surtur. Vili and V were effectively killed, and then they bonded Odin with their life force, which in turn allowed him to basically go back and face off against Surtur. And so this really kind of brings up that conflict and essentially has Odin and Surtur fighting off against each other. Now keep in mind, Surtur is wildly powerful, and again, he's more powerful than Odin is. I mean, it's insane the amount of power he possesses. He's the most powerful in his home dimension. dimension. But it's also Odin basically being able to, at the very least, capitalize on a momentary weakness and a momentary bit of hubris. And so what ends up happening here is because Surtur is struggling to face off against Odin in this particular scenario, he actually ends up retreating and traveling over to Earth. Now again, the idea here is that Earth serves as Midgard, so to speak. And so when it comes to Asgard and the 9 realms, the best way to think about this is a hall of doors. If the hall represents like Yggdrasil, you know, the tree of life or whatever you want to call it, then the doors represent the different realms and you can walk from one realm to the other. The difference here is you can't just like go there. You can't drive to Asgard. You can't drive to Jotunheim. You can't drive to Muspelheim or anything like that. You have to teleport there basically by way of the Bifrost or the Rainbow Bridge from Asgard. There's other ways to get there, like Doctor Strange can get there by opening portals. Anybody who can teleport from one place to another, who can travel through dimensional planes, can get to, you know, these different realms. Most of the time they don't, because they're realms that are basically confined to like Thor stories. I mean, Doctor Strange has done it before, but it's not something that you see very often. It's usually just Thor who goes to these different locations. But the fact remains that with Surtur traveling to Earth, Odin, who's basically empowered at this point, kind of running on 100% of the Odin force, is basically able to trap Surtur within the realm of Earth. But remember, because of the fact that Surtur's so powerful, he can't be killed per se. He can't necessarily be destroyed by Odin. It doesn't work that way. Instead, Surtur's kind of like this immutable representation of destruction in the realm of Asgard. And so the result is that where Odin is able to lock him away temporarily, I believe that Surtur escapes maybe once, although I don't think he does. I want to say he joins Loki for a time, but he's basically confined and held prisoner until it leads to the final conflict between himself and Odin. Now, in terms of this a little bit of an origin, the question becomes, what role is he going to play in Thor Ragnarok? I don't have the answer to that question. The Thor Ragnarok movie seems to be starkly different from the Thor Ragnarok story, because the Thor Ragnarok story basically dealt with the idea or the death of Thor. I mean, Marvel was getting ready to write Civil War, and they couldn't have Thor in that story, otherwise he would have just tilted the odds in favor of whatever team he was facing off against. It's the same reason why they removed the Incredible Hulk. Civil War never would have lasted as long as it did if like the Incredible Hulk and Thor were both in those conflicts. There's a what if story where Thor actually shows up during World War Hulk, but Civil War never would have lasted that long, so they basically wrote them out. Instead, Ragnarok was this event that Marvel had been teasing for like decades, for years and years and years and years and years. And finally it came to fruition with Loki basically banding alongside Surtur following the death of Odin, and then giving Surtur a hammer and giving, you know, the different forces, different weapons that were formed from Uru metal, the same metal that Thor's hammer's forged from, and in turn leading an invasion of Asgard, defeating Thor and the Warriors 3 and all the Asgardians, and then Thor basically being cast out. I mean, Thor was able to gain the aid of Captain America and Iron Man in order to take back Asgard, and in Thor Ragnarok in the movie, it looks like the Incredible Hulk will be a stand-in for Iron Man and Captain America, but Thor Ragnarok looks more like Planet Hulk as opposed to the Ragnarok story, and Surtur never played a role in Planet Hulk, so I have no idea what role Surtur's gonna play. I have absolutely no clue what's gonna happen there. At the very least, it seems like he may be the person that ends up killing off Odin. We know Odin's out of the picture. We know he's been confined to Earth, or at least that seems to be the case, given that one image that people were looking at online, as well as the post-credit scene for Doctor Strange, I think it was. But we don't know. Like, I mean, we have a post-credit scene that's scant at best, and then we have a singular image, like a singular set shot. So we have no idea what's going on with Odin. It seems to be the case, you know, I mean, most everybody's kind of going with that. They're kind of assuming that it's true. But again, it's kind of an interesting scenario, because I imagine Surtur being as powerful as he is, with the Incredible Hulk facing off against him, in Marvel Comics, the Incredible Hulk would pose no threat to Surtur. I mean, the Incredible Hulk's strong, but Surtur has all different kinds of magics and sorcery, and like the Eternal Blade at his side. The Eternal Blade is absolutely crazy, but he has all these different weapons at his side that he could easily use to destroy the Incredible Hulk. So I have no idea why the Hulk's there. I have no idea, you know, how he's going to tie into it all, but it does look cool. It does look like it's going to be pretty solid, and it does look like it's going to be pretty amazing. So anyway, guys, again, a quick little origin on Surtur, not a whole lot to work with. Really, it's more of why it is that Surtur is the mortal enemy of Odin, just because of the fact that the two of them faced off in like a 4-page backup feature, and Odin basically locked him in Earth. And because he basically suffered a humiliating defeat at the hands of Odin, he considered Odin to be his mortal foe. Remember, because he was locked away, Surtur couldn't just walk out. He couldn't just escape. He was basically confined in the center of the Earth, and eventually made his escape and, you know, faced off against Odin and eventually killed him. But if you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.